Good evening. Welcome to Tabernacle live stream. Today we are doing an exclusive with Bishop Dennis A. Meredith. As you probably can see, he is here with us at his wonderful, lovely church that he found when we moved from the old location to the new location. One of the ever great things he's done and a lasting legacy, obviously, for this congregation, giving them a building that is land that is paid for. For that, we are eternally grateful. Today, our subject is the trifecta trauma, and we're going to be talking with Bishop about that. And obviously, I'm accompanied by this beautiful young lady here that is my sister, the wife of my partner, David Herring. We also have working with us today my lovely wife, Janelle Meredith, and let me give her a shout out because tomorrow is her birthday.
Yay.
Yay! My beautiful wife's birthday. We love her dearly and we thank her for everything that she does. Myra, why don't you take it away and give us some more depth to this?
Yes. I'm excited about this because it is a conversation. We call it an exclusive interview because I know a lot of you have been on the edge of your seats wanting to know how Bishop is doing,
Yes.
what's going on. And we titled this The Trifecta Trauma because as we thought about what Bishop is dealing with, we realized he is dealing with three traumatic events at one time. And he is managing it very well, I might add.
Yes.
In that he shows up and wakes up with a smile
Yes.
and drive
Hmm.
and those three traumas are COVID-19, our civil unrest, and he's fighting and beating cancer. So we are here. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to just dig into how do you show up with all of those things going on? How do you show up with hope and still have something to give to your congregation when things like this are going on? So
Yes.
we can just dig right
Yep.
into it, jump right into it. First of all, welcome, Bishop. We're
Well,
happy to
thank you.
have you.
Thank
How
you.
are you today?
I'm doing well. I felt a little strange today, but
Mm,
I just push past whatever I feel. And if I have something I have to do, I have a goal that I must accomplish, in the particular day, like coming here, I just push. I just,
yes,
I just keep it moving as
Hmm.
best I can.
yeah.
What is-
Well, we're happy that you do that, and
Just let
happy
it
that
go,
you're
Daddy.
here.
Hmm?
Don't worry about it.
Um,
Oh,
so we're going to talk about three items. We want to kind of break those up, and then just you tell us how you're able to manage those. So let's first start with COVID. COVID-19. How did you first have to adapt? How did COVID impact your life? What
Yep.
was
So,
your
um, so on March the 17th, I did a biopsy with at the hospital to determine whether or not I was dealing with B cell lymphoma again.
Mhm.
Right at that time was when the COVID-19. I had gone to um, Daytona for Bike Week.
Uh-huh.
I came back from Bike. Matter of fact, they ended Bike Week early, and so we had
Oh.
to leave early to come back because they shut it down because of COVID-19. And so it's when I got back, I had to do that biopsy. That biopsy, for some reason, um, just really left me really sick.
Mm.
And it was right during that time. So I had to figure out how to get into treatment because the cancer was once again in fourth stage. And I
Wow.
had to figure out how to get into treatment. The My insurance at the time would not allow me to go into cancer treatment center. So I had to immediately, along with my daughter-in-law Janelle's help, change my insurance so I could get into the cancer treatment because none of the hospitals were taking anybody and doing
Because of
any
COVID.
treatment for cancer because of COVID. And
Wow.
I had fourth stage cancer, so I had to get in treatment because the cancer was, spreading and growing. And so the cancer treatment center said they would not take me. I got my insurance changed for the 1st of April. So from the 17th of March to the 1st of April, I was not in treatment, but yet I still had fourth stage cancer.
Wow.
and couldn't do anything because of COVID-19.
Mm.
And so the insurance was changed. Cancer Treatment Center would not take me if I didn't have a COVID test. So I had to get tested. So once again, there was this hurdle I had to jump over before, and they did not have testing everywhere at that particular time. And so we it took a whole day for me to finally get tested at Georgia Tech where they were doing testing. So I finally got the testing, and I had to take my paperwork to the Cancer Treatment Center within that week so they could take me in to start my treatment. So COVID-19 really impacted me. And of course, because I had preconditions, I had to really be protective of myself because of the cancer, because then I was very susceptible. At the particular time, my husband, LeVar, was still going to work. And so we had a conversation at that point because he works in childcare. He's assistant director at childcare. He then had to insist to take some type of leave of absence so that he could not, he didn't want to come in contact with it and bring it home to me. So yeah, COVID-19 really impacted me in ways that probably didn't impact other people because I was dealing with cancer. So I finally got into treatment, but during that particular time, the cancer along with the biopsy, it made me so sick until I physically could not drink. And so for 2 months, I laid in the bed incapacitated and couldn't do anything. So within that 2 months, I lost 50 pounds because I could not eat or drink. That was when I lost significant amount of weight. And it wasn't
You said
until
50?
50,
Oh my goodness.
50
I thought you
pounds.
said 15.
No.
Ooh.
50 pounds. I went from 223 pounds to 173 pounds. Because
Wow.
I mean, absolutely
That's
could not
major.
eat nothing. And, I got into treatment. They kept saying you got to eat. Well, chemotherapy prevents me from eating. It messes with my appetite tremendously. So now the cancer won't let me eat. The chemo won't let me eat. Is COVID-19 going on? And so by the end of this process, then all of a sudden, then comes the death of George Floyd.
Yeah.
So now I'm sitting there looking at all of this happen and the protests going on. I lived through the 60s
Yeah.
when we were rioting then for police brutality.
Yeah.
That was 50 years ago.
My goodness.
And so for me to relive this and to see this trauma once again, every time, the police kill someone, it reminds me of what we had to deal with, when I was a teenager.
Mhm.
And to come full circle with this happening again. So I'm traumatized on 3 levels.
Re.
I'm fighting cancer.
Yes.
Mhm.
There's COVID-19 that has me, wearing a mask, being protective,
Yes.
and then the trauma of what's happening with, um, the protests and the looting and all of that. So yeah, it's a trifecta kind of impact on my life.
Yes. Yes.
So let's back up a little bit. The cancer was in the fourth stage. Um,
Mhm.
and when was the last time that when did you, from the cancer going into fourth stage and when you were in remission, how long was that?
So it went into remission in April of 2018 because I went to chemo. They was actually getting me ready for stem cell bone marrow transplant then. But the process for a bone marrow transplant, of which I am preparing to do this time, is a very grueling process. It's very intense. It's no joke to go through. I mean, it's they break you down. They give you extreme dosages of chemo, and so I took my last chemo in April of 2018 and went into remission. They wanted me to come back. I was too afraid to come back. I was like, I can't do this. This is too much. And so I had been so sick until I could not imagine being any sicker than what I already had experienced. And so instead of doing the bone marrow transplant, I just I just didn't show back up. They were calling me. I just ignored the phone calls. And so I started feeling um, like something was going on in September
of
of 2019. I actually
wow.
started feeling something is not right because I was being winded. I couldn't stand a long time. But then, I just kind of, pushed past, we had actually bought a home and moved. And I remember during the moving how I had to rest so much. And
Mm.
so I ignored it. I kept putting it off. But by March of 2020, I just couldn't ignore it anymore. It just really had taken its toll, and it brought me down to where I was just bedridden,
When
and
did you
so I couldn't.
decide to go? When did you decide to go to the doctor? After how long did it take you to decide to go to the doctor
So
after you
I
felt
actually
something in
didn't go to the
September?
doctor until the 1st of February.
Wow.
So I went to the doctor 1st of February, and they were pretty sure that the cancer had, come back, but they couldn't find it. They couldn't. I went through all of these biopsies. I went through biopsies. I went through different testing, and finally, when I got the cancer treatment, Atlanta Medical was doing this, but they couldn't find it. So finally, when I got the cancer treatment, was when they finally discovered and said, "Oh, we are sure that it is once again lymphoma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma." And they said, "We got to get you into treatment right away because you're in fourth stage. It's spreading." And at that particular time, they recognized that it had come back like with a vengeance. Like,
Hmm.
okay, you didn't beat this thing 4 times. We're gonna get you this time. And so they had to get me into treatment right away. But then I went into treatment, and they said I did very well, and they were able to knock it down. But they're saying in order for it not to come back, uh, uh, I have to do this bone marrow because it's going to come back quicker each time. Each time it's going to come back, it's going to be more and more severe until it takes you out, until you expire from it.
If you don't mind, I want to unpack that a little more. So you've had cancer. This is the fourth time.
Fourth time it's come back.
Walk us through each remission. So how long was your remissions from the first time? How long was that remission? And the second time you got rid of it, how long was that remission? You answered the third time. You felt something in September,
Right.
but you went to the doctor in
February.
February. So how have the remissions seemed to have gotten shorter over the years?
Well, it's interesting because I first had lymphoma in 2006.
Okay.
That was when it first had. It was just a small bit of cancer. It was up under my arm and in my neck, and they said it was very curable. And so I did chemo from February of 2006 till November of 2006, and I lost 40 pounds, sick that whole time, struggling, eating, vomiting, all the stuff that goes with dealing with chemo. And so in November of 2006, they gave me my last one, but the doctor said they still saw some stuff there
After a year of chemo.
after a year. But I had been just so sick till they refused to do the chemo anymore because I had just been so ill. And so what they said was, we're going to monitor you. And so I suppose at that point it was in remission because they took me off of chemo, and it didn't resurface until 2009.
Hmm.
By 2009, I was once again in fourth stage. And at that point, I went to MD Anderson Hospital for, once again, stem cell transplant. They were supposed to do 4 rounds of chemo. They did 1 round of chemo in 2009, that September of 2009. When I came back to Atlanta, because I was in the hospital for a week, I came back to Atlanta, um, and I had to go see my doctor, my oncologist. When I went to see my oncologist, the chemotherapy had just destroyed my liver. So I couldn't do chemo anymore. And I was in fourth stage and couldn't do chemo. And so at that point, my ex-wife, Lydia, had introduced me to Dr. Tate. Dr. Tate gave me a holistic regimen of Padiaco and clay. And that was in October of 2009. So I started that regimen of Padiaco and clay in 2009. And I also, kind of went on a restricted diet. Well, by January, I did a PET scan to determine if I had cancer or if the cancer was still there. By 2009, 2010, in January of 2010, the report came back that I was completely disease free.
Mm.
One round of chemo, supposed to have 4 rounds to get me ready for stem cell transplant. Did 1 round of chemo, went to a holistic regimen.
Yes.
And in 2 months, I was completely disease free and stayed disease free until 2017.
Wow.
Amazing.
So from 2010, January of 2010 till what was it? Until I think it was August of 2017.
Wow.
I was completely disease free. It came back in 2017 and it came back severe, with another vengeance. And so once again, I resisted treatment. I just didn't want to go through the chemo. And so in 2000, it was, then the cancer was in my liver too. I had lesions in my liver. And so I was in bad shape. And so my liver was completely defunct, practically not operative. And so they had to put me on different meds to get my liver back together. Then I had to have a couple of stents, 2 stents put in my liver so the bile could be released because the cancer had filled my liver so much. And so I'm, I'm a miracle.
You are a miracle.
I'm a miracle
I
living.
wanna talk a little bit more about Dr. Tate. I don't know anything about Dr. Tate, but it sounds like his holistic approach is effective.
Yeah.
Do you still practice any of that, or what are your thoughts on?
Well, no, I don't.
Is that a sensitive topic?
No, it's not sensitive. It's not sensitive at all. Go ahead, Dad.
Dr. Tate really, brought me through. I was almost like it was a seasonal. God lets
Yeah.
things come in your life in season.
Right.
And so that was what I needed for that season. And Dr. Tate, somehow or another, even though I continued to do the same regimen, it was as if it did not work anymore. It's as if the cancer uh, itself transcended that particular regimen.
Yeah.
And so even though I continued to do that, even up until February of this year, I still did the same regimen. But the cancer, for some
Yeah.
reason, it just didn't take. So I couldn't, there's no sense in me seeing Dr. Tate because I just assumed that that regimen was no more
It
effective.
was out of its season.
And so I
Yeah.
felt like I had to use the medical system in order to eradicate or to deal with the cancer at this particular time. But that worked. It
Yeah.
actually that
Yeah.
holistic regimen, along with um, changing my eating habits,
Yeah, your diet.
really worked. But I do think that what happened this last time, if I may also inject, because I couldn't eat and because I was so sick and I lost so much weight, when I was able to eat,
Yeah.
baby, I ate everything that wasn't nailed down. I was just pork chops and chitlins and everything I could. I mean, I was trying to get my weight back,
Yeah.
and I was eating kind of like what I'm doing now because, I lost so much weight. I'm still limited in what I can eat, but what I can eat, I eat because, I'm trying to get my body back up to, some weight because I
Yeah.
know once I start chemo again, I'm probably
Yes.
going to
You'll lose
lose weight.
weight
I'm going to have
again.
to do these
Mhm.
eating challenges. So this may be funny, but this past week I got on the scale. I was 100. Last week I was 172 pounds. I'm 182.
Wow.
In 1 week I gained 10 pounds.
Wow.
Eating, just eating everything.
Just
Eating
eat.
like I had me a good old pot of pinto beans. I killed them beans. But I'm just saying, it takes my appetite and it's just
Yeah.
And then when I looked at how I looked, I was so, I was so thin, so,
Yeah.
butt gone. I mean, just
Mhm.
skinny. And so I was
That's
kind
tough.
of shame about how I looked. And
Yeah.
so one day, I told LaVon, I just look awful. I didn't want to go outside. I didn't want to, I was like, how do you even look at me? I can't look at myself. Well, one day I got up, I put on some basketball shorts and a wife beater.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I'm going out.
We got to take that word out of our vocabulary.
What?
The wife
Oh,
beater.
yeah, I shouldn't say that. I put on an undershirt, not a t-shirt. I put on an undershirt. That's what that is. Where did white beater come
I
from?
have
I
no
don't
idea.
know.
Anyway, that's a
That's
terrible
a
term.
terrible term,
Yeah.
but
Anyway,
at least we're conscious,
Stereotype.
right?
yeah, thank you.
There you go.
So I put on a undershirt and I had on, and I said, "This is my lot. This is my life. This is who I am, and I'm
Mm.
not going to walk
Acceptance.
around worrying about how I look. This is what I have to deal with." And so I got content with, I said, "Well, you look good."
Yeah.
And my husband kept saying, "You look good to me." So I was like, "Well, now I look good to me." So so I got past that hurdle
Yeah.
and,
That's
working.
self-acceptance.
Yeah, I really had to deal with self-acceptance, a little
Yeah.
pride, a little vainness,
Hmm.
because
Yep.
I
We all
have
have
been
it.
working out and so I lost all of that, all of my muscle mass. And so I just came to terms with, this is who you are, this is how you look, be happy and keep it moving.
Mm.
Can you talk more to the audience about how you brought yourself, because you weren't in therapy?
No.
How did you manage to bring yourself out of, excuse me if I'm making it too blunt, but out of your own like self, you know, low self-esteem or a mild depression for lack of better
Yeah,
words?
I would imagine there was some depression. I certainly was because, to be honest with you, during those 2 months, there were a lot of nights that I cried
Mhm.
myself to sleep. I laid in the bed and I prayed and I said, Lord, you got to help me. I can't do this. And so it was a lot of teary nights, even though sometimes my husband, Lavar, was not there to see it. But there were a lot of nights that I was sad and depressed and basically just kind of decided I'm going to die.
Mhm.
I just kind of laid there. And then what, what, enabled me to kind of push past the I'm dying.
Yeah.
I'm leaving, because I told him I'm dying. And once again, I'm dying. You're looking at a dying man. What got me past that was stop looking into the future
Mm.
and live one day at a time.
There it
Mm.
is.
That's what took me to a place of um, kind of managing this illness and managing going to the hospital 3 times a week, doing infusion
Yeah.
because I couldn't drink and eat. And so they were constantly giving me fluids in and out of the hospital. And so when I decided, take it one day at a time, and and then I put what also helped me was I had goals each
Yeah.
day. I mean, one of my goals was to just sit in the garage and look at the traffic go by. That was a
Mm.
goal.
Mm.
And it excited me to go to the garage and sit in my chair
Yeah.
and just look outside.
Mm.
And so I had these different goals. And then I would have goals of, what I'm going to eat because
Mhm.
eating was a tremendous challenge. So I would lay in the bed for 2 or 3 hours thinking about what can I eat.
Mm.
And then when I locked into, I'm gonna get me a burrito from Chipotle, or I'm
Mhm.
gonna get me a burrito. That's all I could eat was burritos. That's
Wow.
all. I ate burritos
Wow.
every day,
And your stomach could digest that. It
and I
didn't
could
make you sick.
digest
Yeah.
burritos.
Wow.
I couldn't eat nothing else. It was either burrito or a quesadilla
Mm.
with beef. I couldn't eat chicken. Chicken makes me just sick. I could
Ah.
not eat chicken.
It's
No
amazing.
chicken. Fried, baked,
Yeah.
any kind of way I couldn't eat chicken. The only protein I could eat was beef.
Mm.
And so, Chipotle has this pulled beef
Yeah.
and so that was the only thing I could eat. I could eat tomatoes in there. And it's interesting because the last time I went through this, I couldn't eat cheese. I
Mm.
can eat cheese.
Ah.
The last time I went through this, I couldn't drink dairy. Now I drink chocolate milk every day. I love chocolate
Wow.
milk. It's just the strangest
That
things
is
at what
amazing.
my body dictates
Yeah.
as what I can digest. It tells me
Mm.
what it can digest.
Yeah.
And I have to figure this out by testing different things
Yeah. What you
and
can eat.
finding out what I can eat. But like I say, I eat burritos constantly and quesadillas.
Yeah. So let's dig into, you talked about goals. So you set daily goals that motivates you. Where do you find, I mean, the motivation in
Yeah.
dealing with all of these traumas at one time? What are some of those things that you can always rely on? Do you have a resources you pull from? I know the word of God. I mean, what other resources do you pull from to motivate you?
Well, I think number one is family.
Mm,
Family motivates me.
okay.
My husband,
Yeah.
um, he there's so many times he would just say, "I don't know what I'm gonna do if anything happens." Right? He just, he would be so sad. He would
Yeah.
just be so, and he went through depression because it was like, I can't lose you. I don't know what I'm going to do if anything happens. So I was like, okay, well, I better hang around here to, you know, to
Can't go
kind of
nowhere.
help him get through this. And then my family, I love being around Taylor and Janelle.
Yeah.
They help me out so much. I mean, they just, and then my grandchildren, they're so talented. I always tell Taylor, I got to be around to see Joshua because he's going to be a star. So I got to hang around so I can go to the Grammys or something.
We
So
going, Bishop.
Yes.
family motivates me.
Yeah.
Being able to interact with my family, to interact with Lavar's family. His family came down this past weekend. Family is a great motivation
Yeah.
to interact with them and to be around them. That makes me want to get out of bed.
Yeah.
I want to go see my grands. I want to
Mm.
be around them, and so that kind. I think the number one thing is family. The next thing is because I get a chance to interact with my congregation on
Mhm.
Sunday. That's motivating
Yeah.
for me to get up, throw on something. Me and Lavar get down here. I take my little 10 or 15 minutes and preach to my congregation. And they're so sweet. They're so nice. I tell them what I'm struggling with because these meds are just absolutely ridiculous. The
Yeah.
cost of it is just, it's criminal. It's evil to me.
Yeah.
The cost of meds. And I'm in my retirement stage. So
Yeah.
I get my little social security, I ain't getting a whole lot of money. I can't afford these meds.
Yeah.
And so, but my congregation, when I tell you, it almost brings tears to my eye. They
Mhm.
send me my pastoral love offering
Mhm.
every week.
Yes.
They take care of me. And
Yeah.
it's such a blessing to have these people love you like that.
Mm.
That's motivating. That makes you want to
Yeah.
live because
Yeah.
they look forward to, one of my members, Hermita, said, she said, Bishop, when you go, can you sing one of your old songs for me? Because I don't connect with some of that new music they be
Yeah.
singing. And so, they look forward to me singing Trouble in My Way or just,
Mm.
oh, I know the Lord will make a way.
Yeah.
So, they send me contributions. It helps me because it helps me to pay for my meds. It gives me motivation. And so I am motivated to do what I have to do to live, to
Yes.
deal with the grueling process of getting through this sickness because love,
Mm.
because people love you and
Yeah.
they show it.
Yes.
And so that motivates you to kind of hang around because you want that, you
Yeah.
want that love.
Yeah.
I mean, it motivates you. I can imagine with people who don't have family, who don't have people to
Yeah.
love them, how to even deal with stuff like this.
Mhm.
If you're single and you don't have anybody around. And so I'm surrounded with a loving family,
Yes.
with a loving husband, and it makes all the difference in the world to motivate you
Yeah.
to do what you have to do to deal with sickness and all these other issues.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now I can put on my mask and go out, the COVID. Matter of fact, I had one of the members ran into me the other day
Mm.
and they came up to me, oh, Bishop. I said, girl, you got to social distance. She was about to
They
hug
trying to
me.
hug you?
She was
Oh
I said,
my
oh no,
goodness.
I don't do no hugging.
Oh
I mean,
no.
I felt a little bad afterward because I think, they might have got offended.
Do you wear
But
a mask when you
I,
go out?
yeah, you see, we
I
six,
assumed you
you
did.
see, we 6 feet right here.
Absolutely.
So I social distance, and that person tried to hug me,
Oh,
and I'm like, and they didn't even have a mask on. So I said,
oh.
where is your mask and where is your social distance? I don't think some people think about that.
Oh
Be-
my
They don't.
goodness.
They might not have known that I'm
Right.
at risk, but
Right.
I have to protect myself.
Yes.
And so, I don't do no hugging. I don't
Yes.
do no getting in nobody's face,
Yes.
even with my mask on.
Right.
So I don't take no kind of chances. So I'm impacted by this.
Absolutely.
This is very traumatic,
Absolutely.
and sometimes, you got that mask on. Like, I'm brave enough every now and then to go in the grocery store,
Mm.
but I put my mask on, I
Yes.
social distance, and sometimes my glasses get fogged up. But I just, they may fog up, but I sure ain't taking my mask off. I just have to see through the fog.
Yes.
But yeah, this is very traumatizing. And now with what happened to the young man this past weekend,
Yeah. Rayshawn.
Rashawn Brooks.
yeah, Brooks, Mr. Brooks, who got killed. That was in my previous neighborhood.
Mm.
That was where
Around the
that
corner.
Wendy's.
Around the
Yeah.
corner
That
I
was
from
used
where.
to live there too, University.
Oh yeah, so
Yeah, that was my old stomping grounds.
yeah, so
Yep.
that kind of got me.
Yep.
That what happened. He
Yep.
got killed in that parking lot.
Yes.
They burned down the Wendy's where I used to go get me some sandwiches and things.
Yes.
And then the Carver Market where I used to go,
Yeah.
right around the
Yep.
corner. I used to walk there. That got destroyed. And
Oh, I
so,
didn't know
to
that.
go
They
in
did
your
it today.
community
Mm.
and to see this,
Mm.
this is very disturbing.
Yeah.
I believe in the protests. I think the protests are healthy. I think it's good. I think we're gonna turn the corner on this. But to see the devastation and the destruction is very disturbing.
Yeah, it
And
is.
that's traumatizing
Mhm.
to see your
Absolutely.
neighborhood burn.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is your
It
neighborhood. This is
is.
where I live.
Yeah.
So, this trifecta thing is just
Mhm.
is very real.
It
It's got to
is.
be traumatic to see where you live look like a war zone or something that you see on TV.
And police
Yes.
everywhere.
And
Just
police that
you know,
that
the,
that
it's kind of disturbing to see so much police presence.
Yeah.
Troopers all up and down the freeway off a university exit.
Mm.
And I know that there needs to be, some policing because of these people who do terrible things. But to some extent, that's a little disturbing
Yeah, it
too.
is.
It's
It plays with your
intimidating.
psyche.
Yeah,
it
it
does.
Yeah.
messes with you because we they've not changed the way they police.
Mm.
It's nothing has been done for reform.
So
So there's
true.
still this violent way to police. And so when you
Yes.
see them, you still think of violence.
Mhm.
Yes.
You still think that your life is threatened. You still think that someone can be killed by these people because they've not reformed policing. And so to see them as an African American, as a black man, is still nerve-wracking.
So true, Bishop.
It's fearful because you see them, and even though I drive by it, to see them out there with this presence, and it's just kind of like, really,
Yeah.
y'all, come on.
What do
Yeah.
you say to the folks that actually see us that way? What do you say to the folks that look at the
That's good.
statistics and say,
Mm.
black people kill more black people than they do kill more. We kill each
Yes.
other more than police kill us. And I know how I answer that. But what do you say about the scared police? The police that look at us and think that, oh, I got to patrol these neighborhoods and these
Mm.
people live like animals and they're killing themselves like animals.
Well, there is a distinct difference between black on black crime and white people killing black folk.
Mhm.
Because what is behind what white people do is racism.
Mhm.
And this is what we've dealt with for 400 years.
Yes.
This racism. Black on black crime is one thing,
Mhm.
and I know that it should be addressed. But racism
Let's go.
Yeah.
has been with us for hundreds of years,
Yes.
and they've not done anything about it, and they pretend like it doesn't exist. This is
Right.
kind of pisses me off,
Yeah.
when they bring up this kind of language. Oh, there's black on black crime.
Mhm.
Yeah, but what about the Klan?
Yes.
What about the racism that's perpetrated against black people, hanging black people for years? Racism has been plagued our communities, and white people have killed black people with no justice,
Yes.
no repercussion, no going to jail. You know, they kill us and they get away with. That's
Yeah.
racism,
Yeah.
and that is the issue.
Mhm.
You know, deal with racism and stop pretending like it doesn't exist. We
Mhm.
are hated by certain white people
That's right.
Yeah.
just because of the color of our skin.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And we won't deal with that. No,
Yes.
it's racism, and this shit gotta stop.
It does.
Mhm.
And I'm glad these black people and others, baby, I want to get out there so bad. I done told my son, I think I said this before. I told Taylor, put my scooter on the truck. Take me to where they protesting.
Where they at?
Give me a sign and let me hold it up.
Yes.
Black lives matter.
Yes.
My life matters.
Yes.
You know, and this all lives matter. No, black lives matter.
Yes.
Mhm.
Because racism is perpetrated upon African American people.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And that is the issue.
That's the
Right.
issue.
And it must be dealt with. And
Right.
they need to deal with it in Congress. I don't believe, we have black legislators.
Mhm.
We've had a black president. I feel like Barack Obama failed us
Mm.
when it came to racism, because as a black president, white people don't apologize for putting policies to help white people. We shouldn't apologize for helping black people. And I do feel like President Obama dropped the ball when it came to racism. He should have dealt with it. He should have spoke to it. It should have been on his radar as one of the main things that he should have dealt with. And so now we got to have a white president come in and deal with it. He's not going to adequately deal with it because he doesn't know what it's like to be black.
Mm.
The only
Doesn't
people who can
care.
effectively deal with this and speak to it are those who have been affected by it. Yes, we need the white people, but we need the black folk to talk about how we have been impacted by it and how it has ravaged our community and how systematically we get less pay than white folk, how systematically our neighborhoods, our educational system, our schools get less money. We need to deal with it because we are impacted by it. And we gotta speak up. Our voices need to be heard.
Yes.
I'm-
Absolutely.
I'm-
No,
I
that is
apologize.
passionate.
I'm-
Don't you
sorry.
stop that.
I get a little pissed off. you
No,
know.
that's
I'm
good.
a 66-year-old man,
Yes.
and I'm still seeing this happen to us.
Same
I've
thing.
been racially profiled. I had my sons in the car. We're taking a road trip to go
Yes.
bury my uncle. We are driving the speed limit and we get pulled over
Huh.
just because we're black.
Yeah.
And then we ask him, why'd you pull us over? Oh, he couldn't even answer.
Mm.
We were pulled over because we were driving while black.
That's it.
Come
That's a
on.
crime in America. That's a crime.
It's a crime.
It's a crime.
It is.
It's a
White
crime.
police officer pull us over because 4 black men in a car.
Yeah.
And I was there, and it wasn't just one cop.
Mm.
Yeah,
He had his buddies with him too.
Mm.
that could have went. It could have
It
went the
Could have
wrong
went the
way,
wrong way,
and
Could
we
have been a hashtag.
and
it's
we would have
just-
been.
Could have been a hashtag.
Yeah.
We could have been martyrs for the movement.
So once again, I want people to understand we're dealing with racism,
Yeah.
and we're dealing with systematic racism, and that's the subject. And don't let nobody change the narrative by talking about all lives matter. No, shit, we talk about black lives because they matter.
That's the one.
You know how many
at
people were
risk.
lost in the Middle Passage? 200,000 people lost in the Middle Passage.
That's just the estimation.
Come on, that's an
Yeah.
estimate. Come on
Right.
now, y'all.
Right.
Stop killing
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, this is powerful.
What will it take to change? What do you think?
Yeah, what do you
already
think
said
Stay
we're-
on the streets.
Mm,
Stay out there.
yeah.
This is the perfect storm.
Yeah.
COVID-19 hit. Nobody could go to work.
Yes.
40 million people out of jobs.
Mm,
George Floyd gets killed. It's publicized across the world. Everybody see it.
yeah.
And then we decide, let's rise up and protest against racism. Perfect storm. And the folk getting paid to be in the street, getting unemployment. That's right. Pay us the mod.
That's hey,
I
it's
love
it's
it.
fair.
Perfect storm.
Yeah.
It's
A captive audience, and people
God.
can't ignore it.
This is God.
Yeah.
To me, this is the hand of God.
That's right.
Let a pandemic hit the world.
Yes.
George Floyd gets killed during the pandemic.
Yeah.
The pandemic gets put on the back burner. And what gets front and center? The
Racist.
protest against racism. And now we're trying to weave in
Yeah.
through all of this COVID-19, because COVID-19 is still here
It
Mhm.
is.
and it's still doing its
And
damage.
it's on the
Mhm.
rise. in
And it's
some
on the
states.
rise, back on the rise again. But just for that moment,
Mhm.
racism became front and
How about
center.
that?
And that
All
may
the
have
way.
been all we needed.
Yeah.
Baby, all we need. And the world,
The world.
when has the
Tapped in
world
on it.
came together for anything? The world came together to protest racism in America. Isn't that something?
That's huge.
White people from other countries got to tell
Right.
us to stop being racist.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Right.
The old white folk here,
Yeah.
I need, get rid of all of them in the legislature. Vote them out. They ain't done nothing to speak to the issue.
Do you think the powers that be will ever acknowledge? Because a lot of times that's the first step, acknowledging that racism exists.
No.
Do you think they'll
Old
ever
white
do
men
it?
ain't going to acknowledge it.
Will they
Why?
say
Why?
Get rid of
off?
them.
Why won't old
rid of
white men and white people acknowledge the sins of this country?
Because they don't want to admit the truth.
Mm.
And they don't, and not only do they want to admit the truth, but they don't want to answer because they've got to pay for what they've done. And they don't want to pay for what they've done. Everybody else has gotten paid for what white folk have done, but they ain't paid us. But they won't give black people no money.
No.
They won't give us reparations. I
So-
cannot leave that out.
Leave
They
You
that
told
can you
people
can leave
that.
it out.
But they won't give us reparations.
Yeah.
And then somebody said, Mitch McConnell said,
I can't stand him.
we paid our debt for racism or for what we've done
Can't
by
stand that
electing
guy.
electing a black president.
That's a racist statement.
That's
if
a
you think
racist
about it.
statement.
I can't stand Mitch McConnell.
It's just like some of the white people, not all of them, but a lot of these white legislators who are in office
Yeah.
are like the white people of the South who were comfortable with slavery.
Mm.
They are comfortable with racism
Yeah.
because they've been a part of our society and they don't want to deal with it because it's going to take work
It is.
and it's going to cost them something.
And
They
might
don't
lose
want to
something.
pay. They
There
rather
it
give the
is.
rich people money,
There it is.
Mm.
but they don't want to give poor people money and they don't want to pay for what they've done. And
Yeah.
they're going to have to pay. You got to answer.
Yes, you do have
Or
to
you're going to
answer.
answer
I mean, we
because God
started
is
with
the
taking-
judge. You're going to
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah. Taking down Confederate flags and statues, and I mean, we've been fighting that fight, and they don't want to let it go.
They don't want to. They don't want to.
These people lost the war.
Yeah.
They were losers.
Why
And
are
they
they?
celebrating
What other
losers.
time exactly?
When in history
They
have
lost.
losers been celebrated in
Celebrated.
war? When? And then only in America.
In America, where racism is so pervasive.
Yes.
Mhm.
And so they celebrate these loser generals and
Yes.
colonels that lost the war. And they so happy about this damn Confederate flag, all that stuff
Yes.
needs to be taken down. If they want to be serious about it, take it down.
Mhm.
If you really are serious and you want to respond appropriately to the atrocities that you've committed against African American people
And black
over the years, take it down.
I must ask you this: Trump today used African American people, namely the family
You're
of,
right, used.
namely yes,
Well choice.
he used them, namely the family of George. Because to me, if Trump was sincere about black people, he would get on national television and say Black Lives Matter. He would denounce the Klan.
Thank you.
He would denounce the alt-right.
Yes.
He would denounce white nationalism.
Yes.
If Trump wanted my vote today,
Yes.
denounce the Klan, denounce the alt-right, denounce white nationalism, denounce white power, and separate yourself from anybody that has been racist, like Jeff Sessions. I know Trump is racist. He appointed Jeff Sessions the Attorney
And
General
he has a
of the
white nationalist in his cabinet.
Yeah.
What that guy?
Stephen Bannon.
That's
Yeah.
all of these.
Yeah.
He put them strategically
Mhm.
in his camp.
Yeah.
And then what he did to the Central Park Five, he should apologize.
Mhm.
What he did with the birther thing, he
Mhm.
should apologize.
What-
And unless he separates himself, it's a joke that he's trying to pretend that he cares about black people.
What would you say to the audience, to the
Oh, I
people
should
who?
be looking that
No,
way?
you don't have to look that way.
Oh.
But we like the passion that you're giving. But what would you say to your congregation and people in your congregation that have friends that may be Trump supporters, what do you say to them, or any black person that has the blinders over their eyes that may?
How in the hell can you vote for Trump? What is the problem? Why would you vote for somebody who is against you, who does not like you, who hates you?
And he
Why?
claims to be a Christian.
Oh, that man ain't no Christian.
He claims to be a Christian. I
That
really
is the
need to
lyingest
understand.
man on the face of the earth. He lies when he opens his mouth. Good morning is a lie to him. He's a big liar. Trump is all about for himself. That's it.
Wow.
When you open this country back up because you want the economy to thrive and you know that COVID-19 is killing people,
Yes.
you're doing that because you want to be
Selfish.
reelected, and it's all about you. If you cared, you
Yes.
would have shut the country down long enough for us to stop this curve and to
Yes.
stop this thing from growing
Yes.
and stop this thing from rising.
doesn't
He
care.
opened it back up, and these stupid Republicans who followed him are opening it back. Now it's back on the rise,
It
all
is.
because he wants votes. That is insane. And you niggas out there voting for him. What the? You know I'm pissed off now. Voting for somebody who's against you, who don't like you, who hates you, and you're gonna vote for him. I don't care how much money he puts in your pocket.
Come
He's
on.
still robbing
Yes.
from other people,
Yes.
rich black people.
Yes, he
You
is.
call yourself Republican and voting for Trump. What the hell?
It's a Dick
Really?
Gregory moment.
Yes. No.
That's
This-
insane
It's
to
insane.
me.
Yes.
I
How would you
totally-
vote somebody who would hang you?
Mm.
That's to me, you vote for somebody who approves of hanging.
Yeah.
You vote for somebody who approves of of a failed criminal justice system.
Yeah.
You're voting for somebody who
Yeah.
approves of that. You're voting for somebody who believes in police brutality. And your people are getting beat and killed, and you voting for them. What the?
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's some self-hate.
Anyway.
That's some self-hate.
that's self-hate on the part of black folks.
It is.
Anyway.
Yeah.
As it pertains, since we're here,
Yes.
as it
Oh, I'm
pertains, as it
Walk
pertains,
myself in there. Yeah, calm down.
this will help you
Let me-
calm down. This will help you calm
Bring
down.
this
And I
down.
want to call our audience, if you have questions,
Yes.
please let us know. Submit your questions. in the
Submit your
chat.
questions to Bishop. No, we don't
Bishop
see
off
anything.
the chain today, and I'm telling you, and got a little hot of you. I'm
That's
taking my
all right.
jacket off.
It's okay.
Go
It's
ahead.
okay.
We'll get you some questions here in a
We're
minute,
gonna get you
Taylor,
some
at the
questions
end.
in a minute.
Okay.
But I was gonna say the self-hate in the black community is something that white men and racist white people and white people who are comfortable want to use to what do you do when you don't want to take accountability for the problem?
Right.
But it isn't true, that it isn't true. They're not being unauthentic when they talk about our issues of our negativity towards one another.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's true.
that's true. And I don't think us fixing that will change their opinion, and that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is it isn't what they say isn't a tale. So what is your recommendation to our people, to our communities, our neighborhoods, to the folks that inflict self-hate on themselves rather than doing like you did, fighting cancer, fighting COVID, fighting civil unrest, and being depressed and thinking that you were going to die, not 60 days ago, and are here today, giving them one of the most impactful shows that we have. What can you say to the audience that will help them understand how to deal with their self-inflicted pain that the white community actually sees and is right about?
So let me answer this by sharing my own personal ability to transcend my own self-hate. Because I am an openly gay black man. And I lived in secrecy for 50 years, not acknowledging my sexuality because of the fear of being unaccepted, or the fear of being ostracized or cut off, or fear of having to live with people hating me. And it took me all those years to finally come to terms with who I am, admit it, and be open and authentic about it. It wasn't until then, until I realized the damage that I had done to myself, hating who I was because of what tradition had taught, because of what biblical interpretation, how people interpret the Bible, how I had interpreted. But when I decided that I was going to live free and not live with a sense of hating who I was, a great sense of freedom came over me to live my life. And I have discovered that when you can transcend self-hate and not dislike your blackness, or not dislike your sexuality, whatever it is, or not dislike who you are because of your economic status, and be proud and thankful that you are a living, breathing human being on the face of this earth, that God gives you the strength to wake up every day and to live your life. When you make up your mind that you're going to live free, you can put that self-hate behind, and life becomes so much better. Part of my ability to want to live and to live well comes because I am a free man, and I don't give in to, I will walk in, I don't care what, I've walked in a room with a bunch of straight preachers and announced, I'm gay, and don't give a damn about what they think, because I don't care about what people think, because to live free is one of the greatest blessings God has given us. And when people take that freedom from you, it is a devastating thing to live in an incarcerated person while still walking on the earth. That is tragic, to live as an incarcerated person while still on earth. And the freedom to go where you want to go, but in your mind, you are imprisoned. That's a terrible thing. And I would tell anybody, if you can figure this out, live free and be proud of who you are, whether you black, white, straight, gay, transsexual, transgender, whoever you are, live with a sense of freedom and acceptance of who you are. That is the greatest gift God can give us.
Ooh, that's
Was
a
that all
whole
right?
word.
I'm just,
That's a whole word.
I don't know where this is
I
coming
want to
from. I
just
guess
kind
it
of
just,
sit in it. I want to sit in that one. Ooh, I have to readjust myself.
Well,
I'm telling you, it's powerful.
I think that
It's
answered.
powerful.
I think that answered the first question for the audience.
Yes.
Let's see what else do we have. How important is it for Black people to vote in November's election, Bishop?
Do I really need to answer that? How important? It is critical important. I mean, if you got to stand in line for 2 or 3 hours, this election, listen, I believe that Donald Trump and the Senate and these legislators are going to change democracy if we don't vote him out.
Yeah.
I believe democracy is on the line. And if we don't vote him out, he's going to change this to an autocratic society.
And it's a thin line because he already been trying.
And he's trying very hard to do that.
That
And
line
he
is
has
thin.
support.
Yeah.
And I do think that if we don't do something with this man and get him out, that he's going to change, so that not only is it going to turn into some type of dictatorship, but he's going to eliminate the ability to vote.
Yeah.
He's going to change his power, because he
Put a lot
wants,
of obstacles in
his
the way.
goal is to be the best, to exceed President Obama. You know, he's got to do better than
He can
Obama.
exceed Obama if he deals with race, in
He
my
ain't
book.
gonna do it.
But he ain't gonna do it.
It's not
You
in his
hear that,
heart.
Trump? It's not in your heart
It's not his heart. Yeah.
to
How
deal with
important is
racism.
to vote? Everybody needs to vote. Black people need to vote. Everybody needs to vote. I'm telling y'all, please go out to vote. I
Yes.
voted in the primary, put on my mask, stood in line.
So-
Thank God they saw a little handicap and they took me to the front of the line.
But you
But
know,
vote.
that's a good point too, because a lot of these lines are discouraging, especially in Georgia where we have all of these issues.
Oh,
But what I've heard is that if you vote early
it's a little easier. So if you're discouraged by lines,
Yeah,
Try
yeah,
to get there
vote
early.
early.
yeah.
It's easier, and you can vote in different places if you vote early, not on the day of the
Yes.
Right.
election. You have more options if you're voting early.
I
So,
always voted early. I
mhm,
think COVID
COVID-19 messed that up.
messed me up this year, but I always
yes,
vote early, and there are never any lines. So I would encourage you, people, if you can, when they start early vote, go vote. You don't have to stand in the lines if you don't
yeah,
have to.
yeah,
You can early vote.
Early
yes,
early
there
vote,
it
and
is.
if you early vote, you can do it on your off day. You can
Mhm,
early vote on your off day. And
That's
remember,
right.
the longer you stand in line to cast that vote, I know it may not feel like it while you're in line, but that is your knee on the neck of racism.
there it is.
Woo! That's a
That's
good
good.
point.
I
That's
love
The
it.
right. I
longer
like
you
that.
stand in line, the longer you suck the life out of racism,
Mm,
out of systematic injustice.
That's
So
good.
that'll preach.
you
That'll
put
preach.
your knee on racism next, and if you need to look at that Officer Chauvin's face, look at his face all that time you waiting in line, because that's your knee on his neck.
Come on, Taylor.
That's
I
good,
love it.
Taylor.
We got another question for you, Bishop. What advice can you give to caregivers that are caring for a sick family member?
Listen, the caregiver, I will recognize that the caregiver um, goes through too.
Mm,
The
Mm.
caregiver may not be sick, but caregiving to a sick person can be traumatic, and it can be very difficult. I do, there were times when um, during my sickness, I probably wasn't the nicest person
mhm,
to LeVar like I should have been, but caregivers. Just please just hang in there with because if a person is sick and they don't have a caregiver,
gosh.
it could be so devastating on the
Yeah.
sick person. And so I pray for caregivers because caring for someone who's sick is a very, very difficult thing and really need to be applauded. I
Yeah.
mean, for hanging in there and sticking with it. I have to say, I never I am so proud of my husband for rising to the. I never thought he would rise to the occasion. Matter of fact, I remember early on, I, I would say, "Child, you ain't the kind of person to grow old with." I would say that to him. But
Ooh,
when I tell you, he has been amazing.
that's
Oh,
good.
I mean,
wow.
from sanitizing my room to going out and getting my food to
Lovely.
changing my linen. I mean, he doesn't let me change the bed. He changes my linen. He keeps the house clean. I mean,
Mm,
he knows I like a clean house,
yes.
because that, sometimes it wouldn't. And so, well, anyway,
I love it.
Taylor laughing because there's an inside
Just
joke there.
stop. Just keep going. Keep praising him. Keep praising.
I love him. He has been amazing. That's all I can say.
That's
He's been
beautiful.
really, and so caregivers, do what you can to hang in there,
My
to
God.
take care, because it is no joke to be sick.
Yeah.
It is tough to be
Yeah.
sick.
And you don't want to do it
That
alone.
may
And
be
you
a
don't want to do it alone.
Yes. Yes.
that may be a good subject for another show.
Yeah.
Caregivers.
Yeah, yeah,
How
it's
to be a
tough.
good caregiver, because it's so tough.
It's tough.
Mm.
Well, Bishop, I know you can see that church that church
I knew
question, and
this
you knew this
question was
question was
going to
coming.
come.
So I'll just let you win.
When will your church be back open to the public? Because I respect the science, I have to say this, and because we have not gotten a handle on COVID-19, the coronavirus, and because people are still sick, and because I'm at risk, I cannot tell you when we'll be back open. All I can tell you is when we have figured the science out to where people in public gatherings are not at risk and it's safe, then we will open our church back up. I don't want to be responsible for anybody dying
Mm.
because we want to come together for worship. I
Yes.
don't want to be responsible for that. I don't want to die, and I don't want anybody else to die. And the record is there have been churches who have opened,
Come on.
Yes.
Come on.
pastors
That's
who have
right.
opened their churches, got the coronavirus, and
And
died.
Hmm.
And there are churches who are opening now, and those pastors have contracted the virus. So
Mhm.
I cannot tell you when I'm going to open. All I can tell you is this: when it is safe, and they have predicted or been able to say that we can have public gatherings, I think it is absolutely insane that the president is having a
A rally
rally in Tulsa
where it's
where it's rising.
yes,
That's
yes,
evil to me.
yes.
That
The,
is a
But
shame.
the
that's
health,
consistent with
the
his
head of the health department in Tulsa is pleading with the White House
Not to do it.
not to do
Yeah.
it.
And he still is.
Of
So
course.
I know that people listen. Church is in your heart. I love Jesus. Is in my heart. I believe in God. I know I'm saved. I know I'm going to heaven. But I ain't got to come around y'all to prove no point. God is in my heart, and God ought to be in your heart. And you ought to pray at home until we're able safe to come back. Don't try to push us to make unhealthy decisions because you desperately want to come around people and have worship. We do a virtual service every Sunday. You can get on Zoom. Our virtual service is very impactful. People be shouting in their homes. We can shout at home. I shout at home like everybody else. So I do not want to rush this in having people come back during this pandemic.
That's good.
That was excellent.
Do we want to take some more?
We got one more there. What is the role of the church during both of these pandemics? So I would say I would assume it's the pandemic of civil unrest,
Yeah.
police
COVID.
brutality, and and COVID.
I'll make this real simple. Join the people.
Mm.
Churches, pastors, get out. If I wasn't, as soon as my son take me out there, I'm
We
going.
going.
I think churches, I
Yes.
think preachers, deacons, and everybody else ought to be out there because
front
we
line.
are a part.
Mhm.
We are affected. We are infected
Yeah.
with racism. And if the church is going to rise to the occasion, let justice roll down like, what the Bible said, we've got to be a part of this.
That's right.
We've got to be a part of what's going on. And so just like you want to come to church, put on the mask and protest.
There it is.
And put on your mask and go and vote.
And put on your mask and go and vote.
So you talked about this. What is the role of the church as it pertains to the pandemic of COVID-19, in your opinion?
I think that we should engage in social services, feeding people, because there are people who are hungry.
Mhm.
There are people. So I do think that the church should rise up to. One of the things I remember when they were talking about so many people out of work, I made some phone calls to some of my members. I couldn't do it, and I asked them to do some feeding in our neighborhood to provide, to come down here. I do think that we should engage in social services as much as we can
Mhm.
and offer help to people who are affected because of not being able to work and not having money and not having food. I do think we can rise to do better with social services, with what we can do.
We're going to do that, Bishop.
Yeah.
So we've got another question. Should the police be defunded?
So what they're saying about defunding is divert some of the funding
Yeah.
so that it goes to social services in African American communities.
Yes.
I do think that they need to. I don't think we should abandon police departments and
Absolutely.
eliminate them. But I do think if funds can be appropriately put so that we can help these neighborhoods, then we should put funds where we can better serve our communities.
There it is.
Yeah.
So if funding is going to police unions that back police who do bad things, then those funds should be diverted to communities that are going to help African American people in those communities that are needed, so that we can have the things that I grew up with: better parks, better facilities, boys club, girls club, things that will help
A
us
community.
in the community. If funding is going to help that, put it in the communities to help that.
Yeah.
Don't put funds into police hands that only know how to use guns.
Yeah.
Put it in the communities where we can help young African American people to live better.
That's
Put it in
right.
the poor communities.
Put it
Yeah.
in the poor communities.
Yeah,
We have poor communities.
that's true.
This is a poor community.
Mm-hmm.
And so funding, yeah. So if we're going to
Yes.
defund it
Yes.
and those funds are going to go to help our communities, I think that's the right thing to do. I mean, truly in speaking, there's enough money in the police departments. They got
Absolutely.
enough money. Come on.
They
now.
surely aren't paying the police that money
And
with
look,
their salaries.
they're not this. And then look at the equipment that they have. They're spending money on equipment
And that's the
that's
problem.
supposed to be used in a war zone.
That's the
Mhm.
problem.
Then that's the
Come on
problem.
now.
Yes, because you don't need that level.
You don't
for
need
all
that
the
level
Gangs
of
aren't.
tanks and
Yes.
armored cars and
Yes.
come on, really?
Right.
I have
And
grown up in hoods in California and I've seen the hoods in Georgia. One thing gangs don't do is wage war on police.
they don't.
Mm.
So why do you need this
So why do
level?
you need this level of because they're afraid? I mean,
Why are you so afraid
what
of
are the
black
police?
men?
Yeah.
Police need some sensitivity training on dealing with black men
Yes.
in poor communities
Yes.
because the bottom line
That's it.
is they are afraid.
Yeah.
When they see black people, when white people see
It is
black
fear.
people, they are afraid. I do not understand it. And likewise, when a black person sees a cop, they may not be they're afraid. They're nervous.
Well, I mean, what makes them so afraid of us? I mean, we
Not
we do run
acknowledging.
faster and we jump higher. I do. I mean, we are strong. We are a very strong race
Yeah, we're very
of people.
yeah.
Yes.
I mean, they use us on the football field. I mean, they use us to play
You're right.
basketball.
You're right.
Our
The field
athletic,
is-
our athletic
Athletic ability.
abilities
Yes.
are tremendous.
Yes.
And maybe that afraid. Well, look at what the guy. I mean, he got away from 2 white police officers.
Mm.
I mean, maybe they are afraid.
Rashawn
Maybe
Brooks.
they think that Brooks. Maybe they do think that we're stronger than them, and they are afraid, so they got to shoot us in order to stop us. Maybe
Maybe
that's a
something to
subtle
it.
conversation that they have
That needs
that
to
we
be
don't need
had.
nothing
That we don't
know
know.
nothing about, and they may just come out and say it. Yeah, we're afraid of y'all niggas. They just need to say it.
They can't say that.
Oh, they
but
can't say that. I can say it. But you say it. Well, I shouldn't say it. But anyway,
A
I
person
say it
like
jokingly.
Bill Maher is
love it.
probably wondering why he can't say it. No, I'm
No, he
Uh-huh.
can't
He
say
can't.
it. No,
No,
can't
you
say
better
it.
not.
He
He
better
better
not.
not.
He better-
Mm-mm.
All right. What other? Okay. It looks like we've come to a close of
Man.
Well, we want you to make closing
the
remarks.
Oh, you
too.
want me
There's
to
no
make?
more
Yes.
questions. We've
We
had
want you-
an amazing show here.
Well, listen, thank you all. You know, when y'all ask me, Bishop, we want to do you, I said, well, me, what I got to say? I say something every Sunday. What?
People ask about you all the time. They want to hear. They know-
Really?
yes. And even your perspective on all that's going on. You live these things. You
Well,
have
that's true.
experiences and exposure that we don't have. And I just sat here and I learned so much just sitting here. So
Wow.
your perspective is very warranted, and it's I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed just talking with you.
Wow. Well, thank
Yes.
you all. And thank you all for listening. I hope that I haven't offended nobody. But you know, my members, y'all know me. Bishop just kind of say what what's on his mind. I try not to curse as much, but it's just sometimes things, you get fed up.
Mhm.
And I'm fed up with the racism. I'm fed up with the police brutality. I'm fed up with Trump and his antics and the kind of person. I'm fed up with the legislature and how it only supports rich people. There's a lot to be fed up with. So it comes through in my passion.
Yes.
But let me just say this. I do think that we need to pay attention to the science when it comes to COVID-19. I don't think, while science is out there, African American people are affected disproportionately, and the science is saying that. So I do think that we need to pay attention to that. We need to be extra careful, wash our hands, wear our mask. As far as the protest is concerned, I think we need to continue this until change comes. I think that we need to stay into the streets. I don't think that we should be damaging property, but I do think we need to stay in the streets until change comes. As long as we can protest and protest, without the violence and so forth. Continue to pray for me. I'm getting ready to go into this bone marrow thing. I just found out today that, it's going to actually be kind of 2 months where I have to go to the hospital every day, every day. And let me say, some of my members have already made preparations for me to stay at a hotel in the area where Northside Hospital. Listen, thank you all so much. I wouldn't trade my Tabernacle members for the world. You all are so kind and loving. I love you all. I appreciate you, and thank you for all of your support and continuing to support your church. Y'all got my heart. You got my heart. Thank you, and thank you, Myra and Taylor, for doing such a good job with these Tuesday conversations with topics that are so needed in our community. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you, Janelle, David, and all you colored people who've been helping.
Well, we certainly hope that you have enjoyed Tabernacle's
I've
life.
enjoyed it.
Yes. Tabernacle's live stream class today. We heard from our very own bishop. He is the reason why we are here. He's the reason why this church is here. This is all a part of his work, his doing, and his legacy. And we want nothing more than to take that to the next level and keep
Yes.
this thing going and build off of what he has done. And he has done some amazing things.
Yeah.
Again, thank you, Bishop Meredith, for being here. Thank you,
Yes,
Myra, for being
absolutely.
here. We will see you next week. God bless you and God keep you. Bye-bye.
Bye.